some bottles of notes over there.
Well, a lot of the rules carry over. A lot of the.
Hi everyone, this is Engineer Pat 5290 coming to you live from the Mariner's Museum. I haven't been to this museum in a very long time, since I was at elementary school. This is one of our local museums on the peninsula in the Newport News area. It talks a lot about early maritime navigation and how they evolved the ship from the old sail ships and now into the ironclad ships, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and also some of the steamships. This is one of the most interesting museums because there was actually a battle between two ironclad ships, which we'll get to in a little bit, that actually took place in Hampton Roads. As you see here, they're old muskets, old globes, old hats, everything. Old swords, as you can see here, like an old king's sword. This is an interesting section of the museum, and I'm interested in all these old artifacts. So I'm going to go ahead and step aside for a few minutes and let the museum do some talking here.
Much slower, but most of the slower shadings are capsule. And so, but if you sing Drunken Sailor at that slow tempo, people go to sleep. And so they sped up a lot of these things there in taverns and so forth. Oh, really?
Where you're actually sort of rotating around the set as it progresses.
Oh, wow.
That's what's currently there.
I would assume you know John Millar.
Yes.
Okay.
I've got to go to this English dance.
John and I are very old friends. Actually, one of the fiddles on the wall, the push-up, I built it. I love that. I love that place. That's a new bunny rabbit. You got a new bunny. He's actually the one that got me looking into getting the rabbit. Now I am. My daughter has
I'm a cat person.
Well, we have two cats as well.
The rabbits and the cats get along.
One of the cats gets along with the rabbit. The other cat and the rabbit do not get along. Actually, the rabbit does not like the cat. The rabbit chases the cat.
That's right. They're about the same size.
Yeah. So we have to keep them separate. We have this rotation thing in the house. The rabbit gets to stay out of the space. It's very complicated. That's so funny because the one cat doesn't care. The rabbit doesn't care.
And now we come to the section where you can actually look inside the control center of a submarine. This is what a submarine looks like here in the model here. And as we come on into the control room, this is where all the officers actually control the submarine and also fire the missiles. It's really, really cool setup. And if you ever have a chance to actually go inside a submarine, I strongly encourage you to do it. They're really cool opportunities here where you can actually meet some of the guys that actually help run it. It's not an easy job. It's a multi-person job. And you can see here, this is the barracks where they would sleep on the submarine. Very, very cool.
Stay here and check this out, okay? Just play this game. It's like you've got the air carrier, Charlie. Catherine?
Now we come into the model section of the museum. As you can see, there are lots of different models of ships, ranging from steamships, passenger cruise liners, freight ships, and also a model of the Titanic. Some of these ships were along France, America, Italy, and a lot of these were built in the 19-teens and early 1920s. A lot of people back then went by ship long distances, and you can tell the designs of some of these ships are like some of the ones that we have today. Built out of steel, powered by steam, and you can pretty much do anything on some of these ships, like go take a swim in the swimming pool, eat lots of food, sleep on the ship, you name it. And you see the little boats on the side of that ship. They're called lifeboats. Lifeboats are used when the ship is sinking and everyone needs to get out. As you can see here, there's a model of the USS Massachusetts built by Bethlehem Steel Company in Pennsylvania. That's the most highly recognizable name in steel besides U.S. Steel. Now we come into the second room of the ships, and you can see we have a freight ship that is marked Maersk. These are used to transport the truck containers from our major ports all over the world. And the cab right there is where the crew would stay overnight, and the captain would be in charge of the ship. These ships right here are vital to our economy. It is very efficient to move our containers across the waters of the world to all of our major ports.
Can I show you a boat? Mom, look how big the boat is. It's sailing. What? It has houses on it.
Oh, those are storage containers.
Oh, carrying things.
Now we come take a look at one of my favorite cruise ships, the RMS Titanic. On the night of April 14th, 1912, the passenger ship, the RMS Titanic, struck an iceberg in the North Atlantic. Within minutes, water began pouring onto the lower decks. Less than 3 hours later, her propellers started to rise out of the water. More than 1,500 people were left on board that ship. There was little hope of escape. Soon, the big ship the world had ever seen would plunge into the bottom of the ocean. This is what it would look like, and you can tell that in 1912, this was a very, very high-class steamship. And here's a little bit about the family that survived that tragic night. And as you can see, there were lifeboats that actually got these people off the ship and away from it as the ship was abandoned. As you can see, that family spent the rest of their lives in the Hampton Roads area, and that's a very cool little story to read. And we move on down to some of these other cruise ships, and this is the RMS Britannic. I believe this was one of the sisters of the Titanic. As you can see here, this is a really, really big ship. These were like in the early 19-teens, early 1920s, as mentioned before. So I will go ahead and step aside and let y'all look at some of these awesome cruise ships.
I speak of my model and we find a place to go.
As we continue to look at some of these ships, we'll be looking at how the ships were powered. For a long time, they were powered by steam, and other times they were powered by water. And now, today, they're powered by diesel fuel. And you can look at these models, you can see how the ship has evolved over the course of 100 or so years. And the designs of these ships were built like army tanks, if you think about it. We come on down, you can see the little Ferris wheel here that used to pull the water and help power the boat down the water. These were the old steamships. This is the way they used to be powered. And here's a little description on that. And now we can look at some of the motors that power today's ships. They're more powerful and they're very, very efficient. Here is a replica of the USS Monitor. This was built by Newport News Shipbuilding in 2006. The original USS Monitor was built between October 1861 to January 30th, 1862 by Mr. John Erickson. This ship was ahead of its time. It featured lots of different features, including smoke boxes and turrets. This ship was entirely built out of steel, way ahead of its time. And it took 100 days to build this ship and get it ready for the battle between the USS Monitor and the CSS Merrimack. We'll be talking about the CSS Merrimack later in the video. Now we come into the crew room where the captain and the crew slept. This is what a bedroom and captain's area would look like. It looks very nice for the 1860s during the Civil War time. See, you've got a bunk where they would sleep, have dresser drawers to keep their clothes in. They actually had artificial electricity. They had real electricity on this ship, which was very, very unusual for a ship back then. And the captain had a running bathroom at the time, which was very, very uncommon. So this ship had a lot of interesting features that were ahead of its time. So, in the next part, we'll be looking at the CSS Merrimack. Now we look at a replica of the CSS Virginia or the CSS Merrimack. The CSS Merrimack was a wooden ship covered with metal. And as we look inside the replica, we see lots of different boxes of ammo where they kept the cannonballs, where they could fire the cannons. This ship had multiple areas with cannons, where they would load the cannons manually and fire on either side of the ship. As you can see, they even had their own tools on the ship. And the little toolbox is coming around the corner now. As you can see, they had clamps and other carpenter's tools here, like a hammer and a chisel. Just about any tool that you would think of on a ship, and some of these big wrenches that they would use to maintain parts of the ship. This was a shop on wheels, and they also built things on the ship as well. And cool ships like these take you back to a time when they actually really designed this stuff, and it was built to last. So I'm going to go ahead and step aside, and we will take a look at the CSS Virginia. As we come off the CSS Virginia, we're taking a look at the plans that were used for the CSS Virginia. These were actually the hand-drawn plans of this ship. It looks cool where they actually draw it all out and how they laid this ship out. It's very, very cool. This marks a piece of American history that you wouldn't find anywhere else, and you can take a look at this thing. They built this out of wood. They covered it with metal, and that was talking about the engines. And the engines in the Merrimack were very, very unreliable, and they were constantly breaking down. So, and here's a complete model of the CSS Virginia, or the CSS Merrimack, I call it. As you can see, it has the lifeboat on the side to rescue the crew in case the ship was sinking. So we will continue to look at the CSS Merrimack, and we'll go back to the USS Monitor in the ironclad section in just a few minutes.
There is no other man in this country who gives employment directly and indirectly to so many together, or cobwebs together on my brains. I think that life find work to work.
Those same conditions that came together back in 1862.
These bright, pleasant mornings will climb up 6:30. Most days I'm neighbors and neighbors when I go down to breakfast. Before we get going, the morning New York papers that previously are brought down to their colonies digesting our home. Like the Summer readers who will digest
Now we come into the ironclad section. This is the turret of the USS Monitor. And they found this southeast of Cape Charles, North Carolina. As we come on inside, you can take a look at the big cannon that was used on this ship. This turret rotated 360 degrees and was powered by one cannon that could fire in either direction at 360 degrees. This sets apart from the Merrimack because the Merrimack had two different sides of cannons. This one just had one cannon and it just rotated. And they recovered this in August of 2002. The NOAA and the U.S. Navy partnered to pull this thing up. And it was a really good project, and it also brings back some of the local history. And there was a battle between the CSS Virginia and the Merrimack that took place in 1862. That was during the Civil War time. It was a draw, and the Monitor Merrimack Memorial Bridge Tunnel is named after the battle and also the two ships that participated in that massive battle. Now we come across a reproduction of the turret, and it gives you a better look at the cannon and the way it was manufactured. As you can see, this is where the cannon would be, and plus it would be all rotated by gears 360 degrees. And this ship was very, very reliable, and it was designed and built well by Mr. John Erickson. Now we are walking on the 2006 replica that was produced by Newport News Shipbuilding. As you can see, this is the turret, and you can actually stand on this and actually get a feel of what it would be on this ship. And I'll make my way over to the bell, and I will give it a nice ring. So there's the bell, and you can see the plaque is right here too on when it was built. It was the USS Monitor, and it was manufactured in 2006. This was our local shipbuilding company. And as you can take a look out, you get a really good view from the ship too, of the little lake that's on the other side. And this is one of my favorite parts, where you can actually stand on an ironclad ship that was once used in the Civil War. I was really glad the Mariner's Museum has this, and it gives the younger generation something to look at in America's past. Here is a working model of the turret, as you see here. Here's the motor that rotates that turret. As you can see, that turret is moving at 360 degrees. And while it was rotating, it could shoot the cannon. The cannon could shoot in any direction. So if it was on the side, it could shoot from the side. If it shot straight on, it can shoot to the left, right, you name it. This ship could do it all. Here is a working model of the Monitor's motor. The Monitor's motor is pretty cool, and this engine that they used was very reliable. And this gives you a sense of how the Monitor functioned during the big battle. Now we look at some of the artifacts of the monitor that are being preserved in tanks by the Mariner's Museum. I believe a cannon and the turret are being preserved in these big tanks. So really, really interesting artifacts that they have found over time, and this really gives you a sense of what America's past was in the Civil War. And it is with that we conclude the Mariner's Museum tour. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you're in the Newport News area, I strongly recommend you come by this wonderful museum. Please remember to like and subscribe, and let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching this production. I'm Engineer Pat 5290, and I will see you next time.